Okay, this is for future verbs. So if we go back to our map, we've worked in Illinois before. So this is Illinois. And the two things that we've learned thus far are both built on the same stem. So in Illinois we have the present active indicative, the present middle passive indicative, and then also built on the same stem is the imperfect active indicative. That's why we keep it all in the state of Illinois. It's got the same base stem if you're looking at something in Greek. So look at my verb up here. Pistu, there's the stem. And then in the present, it looks like that. And in the imperfect, I would just add to that stem. I'd add the epsilon augment, and then I'd add a different set of endings. But because it's got a stem that I recognize, I know that I'm still in that tense. However, we're moving on in lesson 12 to a different tense that you can't just necessarily build on the same stem. It works for this verb, but it's not going to work for every verb. That's what we do, and we call them the future active indicative, and then the future middle indicative. Not passive, just middle. The passive, you'll see, go all the way out in California. That's one way that I remember them. So the future active and the future middle indicative are built on this principal part, the second one. And the reason we put it in Missouri, it's got a really helpful thing for us to remember, is that you recognize it because there's an S, a sigma, in the middle of the word. Just like in Missouri, there's S's in the middle of the word. So that's how the map helps you. It's a different principal part. What does that look like on our verb tenses? What does it actually look like in Greek? Well, grab this sheet and let's review. Here's the present. The present is what you have to know. You can't get by without knowing it. Let me see if I can get it even bigger. Yeah. Okay, so here it is. The present active indicative you just have to know. Pistuo, pistues, pistue, pistuamen, pistuete, pistuusi. This has no recognizable characteristics, despite the fact that I've just put dots all over the sheet. It's just a regular verb. Present active indicatives have no special characteristics, none. And they just mean I believe. The imperfect are built on the same stem, but they have two characteristics. We've talked about them, and you can see the remnants of where I've erased it on this sheet. You have an epsilon augment at the beginning, and you have secondary endings. Those are the two things, epsilon augment and secondary endings. You see it here. Here's your present tense stem, pistu. Here is your epsilon augment down here. And here is your secondary ending. And it means I was believing. So far, this is the only thing that you know with an epsilon augment. So if you're doing your homework today and you see an epsilon at the beginning of a verb that doesn't begin with an epsilon, and there are some that begin with epsilons, if it doesn't begin with an epsilon, it starts with one now, it means it's an imperfect. That's the best way to recognize it. It will get more complex as we move on, but for now, you're golden. What you're learning in chapter 12 then are the future active indicatives, and they also have a characteristic. Their characteristic is a sigma in the middle. Nothing at the beginning, because that would be a past tense verb, but a sigma in the middle. So look at this. Say I take the same stem, pisteu. This time I don't add anything to the beginning. Oops, you can't see that. Let me try it again. I take the same stem, pisteu. I don't add anything to the beginning. That wouldn't make any sense. Instead, I add a sigma in the middle, and that's what is the future indicator, and then I add those endings that I already knew. So pisteu so, and I'm mispronouncing it by putting the emphasis on this. Pisteu so is the future. I will believe. So I can put that over in this box right here. I will believe. But let me give you another example of the same thing. What if I wanted to say, you will believe? I do it basically the same way. I take the stem, pisteu. To the stem, I add a sigma in the middle. And then after the sigma, I add the second person singular ending, ace, that I already know. This is you will believe. The reason that this is a second principal part, though, is that there are some words for which I can't do that so easily. Let me show you another verb. Do you know this verb? Well, you do. I just don't know if you remember it off the top of your head. Not with that many loops, you don't. er, ko, mai. Like this. That means I come, I go. This is it in its present tense form. The imperfect would also be built off of that. In its future form, though, that same verb, er, komai, looks like this. Elu, so, mai. I think it's only got a middle form, just like it only has a middle form up there as well. Elu, so, mai. Why? I don't know. It's kind of like go becomes going becomes went. It's just a super common verb, and so it changes up forms. No one knows why. But it's built off of this stem. But now once I know this, elusomai, I can make all the rest of the forms. Because eluse, elusitai. I mean, I can build them just like I would samitha, just like I would anything else, once I know the new stem. I hope this makes sense. The thing that I would focus on for right now is I would focus on these different indicators. In the present active indicative, I just have to know them. There's nothing special. In the imperfect, I get an epsilon augment and I get secondary endings. That's what's helping me recognize it. I was believing. In the future, you get the sigma from the future in the middle. I will, pisteu, so I will believe. That's the characteristic that you're looking for.